Does anybody not have it open? Okay, here we go. On getbootstrap.com, if you just click on this button right here up at the top, the CSS button, over here on the right-hand side, there's this submenu, and it shows you all the different things that Bootstrap comes with, that ships with, air quotes. We covered the grid system last week. I want you to click on the typography section, just so I can show you how extensive this is. Look how tiny the scroll bar thing is. If you scroll down, it shows you all the styling for headings. Everything really is right here for you to see. I encourage you to read through it. Unfortunately, I can't cover it all, so I'm just going to do a couple quick demo things, and then we're going to move on to some responsive utilities. So here's my document, and if you want to just test that in a web browser or open it up in a web browser, we'll take a look at it. Are you guys familiar with that that new movie that Vince Vaughn is in? Yeah. Did you see the stock business photos? So I use those. So this is my web page. I threw this together yesterday. My web page is called Unfinished Business, but as you can see, it's not the nicest page in the world. It only took me about 20 minutes, so I'm not too worried about it. But as you can see, as I break my page down, it starts to scroll, and it's kind of blech, right? So let's go ahead, and we're going to actually change some styling stuff. I've got an actual footer down here too, and I'm going to actually just work on the footer right now. Okay? So if I open up my Dreamweaver file, scroll down. So I've got this footer tag, and inside of it is just a paragraph, okay? This is the copyright information for Unfinished Business, the company. Bootstrap comes with, well, have you guys heard of the small tag before? I guess that's a better way to, there's a small tag, okay? And what it really does is it makes things small. It was frowned upon, a while ago. People were saying, well, if you want to make something small, use CSS for that. That's what CSS is for. Stop using the small tag. Small tag actually is pretty good, though. It's come back around, and people kind of like it because semantically it makes sense. Why can't I label something as being small? It's good for things like legal mumbo-jumbo, copyright stuff, fine print things. So why can't I just use the small tag? So I'm actually going to go right inside this paragraph tag here, and I'm actually just going to add a small tag. And the small tag does have to be closed. So at the end of this paragraph, I'm going to close my small tag. Now, it's not the small tag itself that is actually making things small. It's the CSS that is applied to the small tag that is making things small. So if you save that and then refresh your page in your browser window, what's going on? Did I save it? Did it work for you guys?
Yeah, I think it did for you too.
Why is it not working for me?
I think it is.
Oh yeah, it is. Okay, it's a little bit smaller. Okay, yeah, it's if you read the documentation for the small tag, it's only 85% the size of its relative size. Okay. One other thing I want to do is I've got a couple, this 4-column kind of information section here, and let's say, just for argument's sake, that this first one isn't actual content. Let's say it's a quote. This is something that somebody had said about this really corny celebration image right here. So there's a tag for that too, and there's custom styling for that tag that Bootstrap has given to you to make things really easy. So let's find that content in our Dreamweaver file. It actually starts on line 29. That's it right there. Right in this paragraph, I want to make this paragraph look like somebody's speaking, like a quote. Well, there's a block quote tag too. It's new to HTML5. I'm going to do the same thing that I did to the paragraph in the footer with that copyright information, and I'm going to put a block quote inside this paragraph, but around the content. So I'm going to open my block quote, and then before I close my paragraph, I'm going to close my block quote. And save that, and if you test that in your browser, there you go. It's all right, I guess. It's a start, but that is the default display for quotes inside of Bootstrap. I encourage you to do your own styling on top of this, right? Or else everybody's project is going to look the same that ever uses Bootstrap. And I'm going to cover that at the end. Again, these are just a couple of the rules. I think I accidentally closed Bootstrap. These are just a couple of the rules that come with the typography section in Bootstrap. You can see here, it's pretty extensive. It covers everything from body copy to marked text, deleted text, strike, like it goes on and on and on and on and on. Okay, unfortunately I don't have that much time. So we're going to talk about some responsive utilities. Over here on the right-hand side, there's this responsive utilities link. I'm sorry that that's so small, but it's towards the bottom. If you just click on that, it'll take us down to the page, and we see this little chart. So what is this chart talking about? Maybe I'll start with an example first. If you go back to your page, what I want you guys to do is just kind of start shrinking your browser window, and I want you to pay attention to what happens up here in the head section. So we've got our logo over here on the left-hand side. We've got this image over here on the right-hand side. As I start to break my page down, you can see the different layouts are starting to kick in. That's not too bad. I'm getting some issues with images here, which I'm going to address, and I keep shrinking it down. And then it gets to this point where it breaks right there, and it's like, okay, this image was all right before in that other layout, but now that my page is so narrow that this is breaking down to another line, maybe I don't need this here anymore, right? Remember, Bootstrap is made for mobile first, okay? And then as things start to enlarge in size, then you can start adding things to your pages. So maybe I want to get rid of this. And that's what that responsive utilities section in Bootstrap is for. You can show and hide different sections or different elements of your page. But be careful when you're doing this, because if you hide things from your page, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're removing them from the markup. So what's happening is that, say on your mobile device, you go to the website that you've created and you've decided to hide a couple things on that page. Well, that page's markup still has a link to an image or a link to some audio or a video file. If you've hidden those, the markup is still actually telling your device to download that content. So it will slow down performance if you decide to hide a lot of things. Not slow down performance, but it will take just as long to load as if you were to show them anyways, okay? Because the device is still downloading it. So we've got these two classes here, visible and hidden, and they do exactly what they say they do. Visible will show something that's been hidden, and hidden will hide something that's been shown. And you can do that for any specific window size or viewport that you want. So if I go back to this really quick, and I break this down, and here's my extra small layout. Okay, this is breaking down to the next line. I don't want that. What I want to do is I want to hide this image in the extra small layout so that it doesn't look so crappy. This here actually, by the way, little aside, it's called the Jumbotron. Yeah, kind of a neat name, I guess. Kind of cheesy. But you can see it here. I'm just going to scroll up on line 23. If you just put the class of Jumbotron on a div, you get this kind of display where you get this light gray background, and this is all just text styling stuff that you can see in the typography section. Okay, so what I want to do, like I said before, is I want to break this down so that when I get to this layout, this image disappears. So let's jump back to Dreamweaver. And in the head section, which is right here between lines 13 and 20, Line 18 is that horizontal image of what's his name? I can't remember that kid's name.
Dave Franco.
Dave Franco, yeah. Is he a kid? Yeah, he's just a young pup. Anyways, what I want to do is I want to hide this thing, okay, at that size. So all I need to do is if I go back to the documentation, it's telling me if I put this class on that image, it will hide it at that extra small size. So anything less than 768 pixels wide, it will hide it for me. So I'm just going to take that class hidden-xs and I'm going to put it on that image. So class equals hidden-xs. So if you save that and then go back out to your browser and refresh your page, my fingers are crossed. There, see how that disappears now when it breaks down to that 768 pixel. So that looks better actually because it looks all right in this layout. It looks all right. It still kind of looks like junk, but for the argument of doing this demo, I put it there. And there, now it looks better. So that's how you can either decide to hide or show things in the different layout sizes in Bootstrap.
Go back to the code for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's just this class right on the image tag. So you can apply this to anything. You could apply this to divs, you could apply this to buttons, you could apply this to form elements or anything you want. Do you guys have any questions so far?
Why don't we need the period before hidden for the body?
Because this is the CSS rule.
Oh, okay.
So when you're writing it in CSS, you'll actually see the period. That's just signifying that it's a class.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
we need to actually write class in the HTML. All right, so buttons. Default browser styling really is kind of garbage too, right? We've all seen blue buttons with underlines under them, and we hate them. The Bootstrap default styling isn't really much better. It's just a lighter blue without the underline, and when you hover over it, it's now an underline. So wouldn't it be great if we can actually turn these into something that looked more like a button? Well, we can. I'm doing a lot of kind of rhetorical questions. But we can. If you click on the buttons section right here in the sidebar of the Bootstrap page in the CSS, there's a whole bunch of different things we can do with buttons. We could change the color, we can change the size. What we're going to do is we're actually going to do a bunch of that right now. So I'm going to go into my, sorry, maybe I'll just show you what we're going to do first. We've got these 4 buttons, one inside of each column here. We're going to change the look of them all so that they all look different, just to kind of give you an idea of what's possible. Let's go back into Dreamweaver. We'll just find that code. The first column starts on line 29 and goes to line 34. That anchor tag is right on line 33. So that read more. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add a class to this anchor tag. So we'll just open up a class attribute first of all. So there's our class. Now we need to add a bunch of classes to this tag. If that's ever too low for you guys at the back, just let me know. Sorry, I forget to sometimes scroll to the top of the screen. So I'm inside of this class on the anchor tag. And the first thing I need to do anytime I'm going to turn a link into a button is I need to put this class called btn. Okay, that's the first class that you put on it. The second class that you put on it is relative to how you want this button to look, to basic styling. Maybe what we'll do is, you guys don't have to do this, I'm just going to save this and refresh my page so you can see what that actually did. Nothing. Okay, didn't do anything. It set us up though for doing other stuff. So I've got this space. I want to put another class on here. And trust me on this, you can go through the documentation if you want to. I'm just going to say btn-default. So this is the default button styling that ships with Bootstrap. If you go ahead and save that, that part you can do if you want. Save that, and then refresh your page. Why isn't mine working? Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, so there it is. It's this gray button with this darker gray hover state. Kind of boring. So let's go back to that. So default is one of the ways to style it. There's also one called primary. So if you go ahead and save that and preview your page, so that's the blue. So for some reason, Bootstrap liked to use blue for a lot of their kind of default color styling stuff. Doesn't mean that that's the only color. I'll show you really quick. There's green, light blue, orange, and red. And the words that are actually inside of, sorry, I'm again at the bottom of the screen. The words that are in all of these are the actual words that you want to switch out anytime you want to change a style. You can see them right here. Button primary, that's the blue one. Button success, that's the green one. So we're going to do a couple of these right now. And then we'll talk about some sizes. So let's jump back to Dreamweaver. On line 39, I've got another button. All right, I want to change the color of this one too, and I want to make it look like a button. So I'm going to put class equals btn space btn dash warning. And then close my class attribute. Okay, so that's what we just did right there. Instead of doing this over and over again, I'm just going to copy this. Copy that little bit of code. And I'm going to paste it. So my next button is on line 45. I'm going to paste it right there, right inside the anchor tag before the href. Sorry, I'll go to the top, right there, and I'll paste it. I'm going to change it from saying warning. I'm going to say success. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing on line 51 for that last button. So I'm going to paste that class. It says button warning again. I want to change that warning to danger. This is a very, very high-tech confidential page. So if I save that, you guys all caught up with me? Yeah? Okay. It's a lot of copying and pasting, so I hope you can keep up with me. We'll just refresh our page, and there we go. We've got 4 different color buttons. Now you can see they're all the same size. They don't have to be all the same size. I'm going to change the size of some of them. So again, that is just literally just putting a new class on some of this stuff. So let's go up to the button that says warning. In that anchor tag, I want to put one more class on that anchor tag. I'm on line 39 right now. So again, what I need to do is I always need to start with btn dash LG for large. Okay, so that will make my button large. On line 45, I want to make that button small. So I got to go into the class on that line there, and of course btn dash SM small. And one more, which is a little bit cooler, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. On line 51, I've got that last anchor tag. I want to put one more class on that. That's the danger button. It needs to be nice and big. I'm going to do btn dash block. So what block does is block turns it into a block level element, because anchor tags are inline level elements. So what's a block level element? Well, a block level element, remember, takes up the full width of its parent container. So what's its parent container? Well, it's the paragraph that it's in, okay? Well, what's the width of the paragraph? Well, you have to remember that a paragraph is also a block level element. So it's taking up the full width of its parent container. So what's its parent container? This div. So it will take up the full width of this div, okay, which is 1/4 of the entire page. So if we save that and then test it in our browser, there we've got a regular button, a big button, a small button, and this block button, which is the full width of that div. You guys have any questions so far? You might be asking yourself, what if I don't want one of those colors? We'll get into styling, do some custom styling on this stuff towards the end. So images, next. You can see here that our images, right out of the box are totally unresponsive. But Bootstrap has made a class for that. I sound like an infomercial. Let's go back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to go up to the top of my page. I recommend that you do this for all images unless for some really specific reason you don't need to. Okay? There's one class to make images responsive that you should just put on anything. I'm going to do it right here on this image here, which is the logo. It's really easy. Excuse me, it's just class equals img dash responsive. Putting that class on all images will make them responsive. What does that mean? Well, if it's too big to fit inside of a container, it will shrink it down. Let me just jump out to the Bootstrap overview really quick. I'll go to images. So when you add the image responsive class, what that does is that applies a max width of 100% and a height of auto to that image. So when you're saying the max width of 100%, you're saying it can only be as wide as the parent container that it's inside of. Okay, so it's bigger, it will shrink down, and it will work with width, and the height will automatically just change so that it's in the same ratio and your images don't get skewed. It's just really that simple. At that point, when I've got that one time, I just literally copy that and start pasting it everywhere. Paste it on every image. So here I've already got a class, so I'm just going to write image-responsive. Right on line 18, I've already got a class attribute started, so I'm just going to put image responsive on it. Same thing with line 23. I've actually put a class of pull right on that image so that it displays to the right-hand side. Because as you can see, I've actually written the image in my HTML before my H1, so it should be displaying to the left. But because I've got pull right on it, it's basically floating it right. So for that image, I'm also going to do image-responsive. On line 30, I'm going to paste that class, image-responsive. On line 36, I'm going to do the same thing. Line 42 and line 48. So if you save that and test it in your browser, you might actually not see too much happen. Is everybody caught up? Sorry, I kind of did that quick. Everybody's good? So if I start resizing this, do you guys remember before what was happening is that these images were staying the same size? Because remember, right out of the box, Bootstrap doesn't apply responsive anything to images. So these were actually overlapping a little bit. They were touching each other. Now that I've made them responsive, they're resizing to shrink down to fit inside of that parent container. That one, they got a little bit bigger. And you can see up at the top, oh darn it. Do we have Chrome on these bad boys? Give me just 1 second. Chrome has a really good developer tool. So if I You guys don't have to do this. I'm just going to try and show you something. If you're ever designing something with a responsive design, this developer tool in Chrome is actually really good for testing. I put it as a resource on Blackboard for you, so you can just click the link. Firefox also has a really good tool called Firebug. I put the link on the resource thing in Blackboard for you too, so you can install that if you like. So if you go to View Developer and then Developer Tools, you can actually inspect all of the different elements on your page. Maybe I'll get into this in a second, but I just want to resize this page. You see my main image in my Jumbotron now, how it's resizing as the size of my screen changes. So that's all because of that image-responsive class that we put on it. You can see that my images down here are also getting really, really tiny. Do you guys have any questions? I don't have that much more to do, I don't think. Glyphicons or glyphicons, or I don't really know how to say it, but I'll show you what it is. If you go back to the Get Bootstrap website, we've been working on the CSS page this whole time. What I want you to do is just click on the components page, and right at the very top of the page are all their available glyphicons. There's 260 of them. Okay, these things are basically like text. They're completely vector, so you can actually, they're inline elements. You can wrap them right inside of text, and they will resize, which is great because we're doing responsive design, so we're using relative units of measurement like ems and percentages. So these things are great, and all the classes that I need for them are actually displayed right below them. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to apply a couple of these little glyphicons to our page. Wouldn't it be great if we could put little icons right in front of these titles? Well, we can. There's another rhetorical question for you. So let's go back into Dreamweaver, and we'll find those titles. The first one is on line 31, this H4. This is Title 1. Okay, so remember that these are basically just like text. You can also think of it as like the Wingdings or the Dingbats font that's on systems. It's kind of like that. All you want to do is use the span tag and apply a class to that span tag in order to get them to show up. Okay, I'm going to do this right inside of this H4, so it'll be the same size as the H4 tag. And I'm just going to open a span tag. So there's my span tag. And I'm going to use a class on that span tag. So class equals, I always like to open and close it, and then go back inside the quotes there. The first thing we need to do is, just like the buttons, we actually need this kind of class that gets the ball rolling, and that's called Glyphicon. So we'll just type Glyphicon, Glyphicon, and then a space because we're going to do another class. So that basically tells the span tag that this is going to be a Glyphicon, and then we need to tell the span tag what Glyphicon we want to apply. So we're going to apply, I've written it down, Glyphicon dash pushpin. Okay, so if you save that, and then go back out to your web browser and refresh your page, there's your little push pin. Obviously that's not ideal. Did I close my span tag? I didn't. Epic failure. Don't forget to close your span tag. I forgot. That's probably why my text was right up against my push pin. So if I refresh that, well, it's still right there. But I could change that with some custom styling. Does everybody have that? Did that make sense? Okay, let's do the same thing for the other three titles. Let's just make things simple. We'll copy that span tag, that whole thing, and we'll paste it right inside this H4 title, which is on line 37. So let me scroll up right there. I'm just going to paste that in there. But instead of pushpin, I'm going to use a different one. I'm going to use briefcase. This is a business website after all. Let's do the same thing on the next H4, which is on line 43. Paste that in there. And again, I've got pushpin, but I'm going to change that to, where is it? I don't know, pick one. Go to the website and pick one yourself. I'm going to use knight. It looks like a chess piece, like a knight chess piece. But if you want to go back out to Bootstrap, you can pick anything you want. You know, Glyphicon-pencil, Glyphicon-film, whatever you want. And then the last H4, which is on line 49, go ahead and paste. Again, I've got pushpin. I'm going to use text-background. So I'm going to save that. Is everybody caught up? I'm going to save that and preview it in my browser. So there I've got my briefcase, I've got my little chess piece, I've got this reversed out A. Wow, it's really blurry up there, eh? Okay, so I mean this page is pretty random, but at least it shows you some pretty neat tools. All right, I want to jump back to images again really quick. There's, you know, we've made these responsive, but they're still not very decorative. They're all rounded, or sorry, squared corners. I want to show you some actual kind of decoration effects that you can add with Bootstrap. So if you jump into your Dreamweaver file and scroll up to the section where you've got the Jumbotron, which is right there on line 22, I've got this image which has the class of pull right and a responsive on it. Maybe what I want to do is I want to make that a circle instead of a square. It's a square in my graphics folder. If I show you my graphics folder, give me 1 second. I'll eventually get it. It's number 9, I believe. Oh, number 2. So here's my image. It's just a square. I can actually use CSS to actually give this some rounded corners. That's the technique that it uses. It gives it rounded corners to the point where it actually looks like a circle. So right inside of the class on that image, I'm going to add a new class. So at the end, I'll just give myself a space. And I'm going to put img dash, you can see them pop up here, my code hinting, circle. I'm going to save that and go back out to my browser and refresh it. So it's an oval. So why is it an oval? Well, it applied the corner radius in such a way that because my original image was actually a rectangle, now I've got an oval. The only way that I could actually get an actual circle is if my original image, was perfectly square. Okay, so just keep that in mind. There's a couple other things I can do. You can see this image here. It's almost a really white background on this white page. And it's hard, you know, if this woman's hand wasn't cut off both on the left and top, it would be really hard to kind of define where the edges of this image are. Okay, except for these couple sides. Up here it's a little difficult, and over here, where is the end of this image? There's an image effect that Bootstrap calls thumbnail that we can actually put on this, and that's what we're going to do. So back in Dreamweaver, there's my first image right here on line 30 for that first column. I've got a class of image responsive on it. I'm just going to give myself a space right after that. I'm going to apply a new class to this. And that is IMG dash thumbnail. You can see it pop up in your code hinting. That's the great thing about Dreamweaver is if you ever, you want to style a button, but you don't know what you can really style and you don't really feel like going out to the website to read all the documentation, you can literally just start typing the class, and thanks to Dreamweaver, the code hinting will pop up, and it's pretty self-explanatory the way that Bootstrap is. They've used really good naming conventions. You can pretty much figure out what all the different classes do. So I'm just going to say image thumbnail, and if I save that and refresh that in my browser, you can see I've got this nice kind of padded, rounded corner with a little tiny border around that. So that kind of helps me define my image. I don't know if you guys ever want to do that, but it's there. And let's say for shits and giggles, pardon my French, that I want to put rounded corners on this bad boy on column 2. I've got that on recording. Not good. Yeah, okay. We're all a little artsy-fartsy anyways, so let's go to line 36. That's that second column image. I want to give myself another class. I'm going to do IMG dash, and you can see right there in the code hinting, rounded. So what that will do is that will give me rounded corners on my image. So if I save that and preview that in the browser, refresh my page, there I've got some nice kind of rounded corners, so it's not so, it kind of matches my Jumbotron a little bit nicer. Okay, custom styling. Obviously, you're not going to want to use all of the styles that only come with Bootstrap. You're going to want to do your own custom styling. Okay, if nobody ever did any custom styling, you'd be able to tell every Bootstrap site as soon as you hit the home page or the index file, however you want to say that. So what I've actually done inside this Dreamweaver file is I've given you a link, and it's linking to the CSS Bootstrap, and it's also linking to a custom.css file, which you can access right here up in the top of your screen, right underneath the tab. So if you just click on it to open it up, you can see that it's blank. Okay, I was just nice and wanted to do something for you, and so I attached it. You're welcome. That was a joke. Okay, so let's say, for instance, that I go to my page and I look at my footer and I'm like, oh my god, that is garbage. It is garbage. I'm going to change it. Okay, I'm going to write some custom styling for my footer. Whenever you're doing custom styling, make sure that, remember how the cascade works, right? Let me jump back to Dreamweaver really quick. Remember how the cascade works. So it reads top to bottom, left to right, and that's the way that it applies those styles. Okay. So what it's doing is it's actually going to the Bootstrap CSS, and it's saying, all right, apply all these styles. Applies all the styles, and then it goes to line 2. It says, okay, I found a link to this custom CSS. Go ahead and write those styles in. And because we're doing it last, remember that the last rule applied wins if inheritance and specificity aren't coming into play. That's why I always put my custom.css or my styles.css or whatever that I'm writing after I attach my Bootstrap file. Okay, I won't keep you too long about doing some custom stuff, but I just wanted to show you that you can do it. So back in my custom.css file, I want to target my footer. So that's going to be my first tag, footer. Open and close my curly brackets. I'm going to write some custom styles in here. So the first one I'm going to do is some padding. So I'm going to do padding. Does anybody know what unit of measurement I'm going to use for this? Ems, yeah. Why am I using ems? Because it's relative, right? That's the great thing about Bootstrap is everything is relative units of measurement, and ems are a relative unit of measurement. Now, what is 2 ems of padding on the footer? I don't know. I have no idea. Remember that ems are relative to the font size of that tag. I don't know what the font size of the footer tag is right now. I could find it if I go all the way back through my HTML. I've got this I'll do this really quick. I'm not going to come up with the answer, but it's an example. This is the small tag is 85% the size of the paragraph. I don't know what the size of the paragraph is relative to the footer, relative to the body tag. I don't know. Okay. Sometimes it's just best to start shooting in the dark and coming up with values. It might actually take you less time, and I will admit I've done it before. Okay. I could find what the exact value of it is in pixels somehow, but I'm not gonna because it's a waste of my time. So I'm just gonna use 2M, and just trust me on this one because I've already done it. My next rule, do you guys have any questions about that? I could definitely specify what 2Ms is right now by writing a font size rule, but I'm not gonna, because then it's not a relative unit of measurement. Okay. Margin of 3M. Also, I'm writing this in shorthand notation, so when you've only got two values, the first value is your top and bottom, and the second value is your left and right. Okay, I could do all four values, but I don't need to, nor do I want to. Border top. I want to put a nice thin line at the top of my footer just to kind of separate it from the rest of my page. So border top. And quick little review. Remember that whenever you have a border rule, you need to apply the other three rules: border weight, border color, and border style. Okay? I'm going to write them in shorthand notation here so I don't have to write all of that junk. I'm going to say 1 pixel, that's my weight. Solid, that's my style. And my color, which is kind of a favorite of Bootstrap DDD, which is that really light gray. Okay, so border top is just getting 1 pixel weight, solid as the style, and that color. Okay, I only wrote 3 digits because remember the first one is representing both digits for the red value. That one's representing both digits for the R value. Yeah.
Why is it pixels not M's? Because we're using M24.
Oh yeah, I could do M's, but I just want a really thin border. So even if I were to do like 0.1 M, I don't really know what that's going to be, nor might it be as small as I really want it to be. So I'm just going to use a pixel. But that's a good question. Color. So remember, color you can think of as foreground color. Okay. Basically meaning what's the color of the text. I want the color of the text to be 999, which is a kind of 40% gray. I don't want this to be really visible, right? Like this is just crummy copyright information. And I want to center it, so I'm going to use text-align center. Okay, so if you save that, go out to your browser and refresh your page. There, that's a little bit better. That didn't take too long. A couple more things. We'll do some stuff to the glyphicons, and we'll do some stuff to some buttons. What do you guys want to start with? We'll start with the glyphicons, I guess. So we'll just write a new CSS rule here. So I want to target all my glyphicons, and I want to make them a specific color. Well, that's easy to do, right? Because remember, they're basically just like text. I can target them, no problem. If I go back out to, my code here, you guys don't have to do this, I'm just going to show you. These are just a span tag inside of an H4 tag, and they've got these classes. Now these classes already have styles written to them. I'm going to add to those styles. I'm going to use this class called glyphicon or glyphicon or however you want to say it. Whoa. And that's how I want to write my next selector. So because it's a class, using the dot and glyphicon. I'll open and close my curly brackets. And my page is pretty much blue. I've got these two-tone blue things going on in the logo. I'm going to use those colors. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this to color, because remember, color is your foreground color, and because these things are like text, that's the rule that I want to use. The color is going to be pound 0 E 3 E 6 2. So if I save that, and I go back out to my browser and refresh my page, it's hard to see. You might not be able to see it on the screen, but they're blue. Okay? What if, for some particular reason, I wanted this little A to be a different color from the rest of them? Well, if I go back to my code and I take a look at it, you don't have to do this. I'm going to show you. I've got this other class that's just specific to that glyphicon, telling it to be that letter A, which is this glyphicon-text-background. I'm going to target that class and give it a new rule. So back in my CSS, I'll write my new selector, glyphicon, and thanks to code hinting, it is right there, so I don't have to type the whole thing out. Open and close my curly brackets. And I'm going to change this one to the light blue. So color, and again, remember that this is the way that the cascade is working. It's applying this dark blue, and then it keeps reading, so farther down the page, exactly one line down the page, it's seeing this new color, and it's applying this to that class. So because this is the last class that is being read, it is the one that kind of takes over. So the color is pound, I wrote it down, 81 D6 FF. So if you save that and then test that in your browser, there. So now just that one is blue. Do you guys want to go over the button one? It's pretty much the same thing that I just did. Maybe I will. I'm seeing a lot of hesitant faces. Okay. Before we do that, I want to make all of my buttons look the same, because right now I've got this button of danger, button block. I want to make all the sizes the same size. So the only classes that I'm going to apply to all of my buttons right now are BTN, whoops, and BTN dash, where is it? Info. Did everybody get that? I'm working on line 51 right now. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replace the classes that I already wrote to show you the different colors and sizes with these ones so that they all look the same. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it over top of my other buttons. Right there. So all of my buttons should now look like this: BTN and then a space and then BTN-info. So just those two classes on those anchor tags. Is that good? Is everybody caught up? I don't want to get too far ahead of everybody on the last step. Okay, I'm going to save that and I'm going to preview that in my browser. All right, so they all look like that, which is all right. That's not too bad. But what if I wanted these to originally be a dark blue, and then as they hover over, they're this light blue? So let's go back into my CSS, my custom CSS. I'm actually going to target the button info class to do this. So I'm going to write a new selector called btn-info. Open and close my curly brackets. So I can already see what kind of rules are already on this, right? It's just rounded corners, so it's got a border radius, it's got some light blue, it's got a white text. What do I want to do? I just want to change the color, really. So I'm just going to write a color rule for the background for that to make it dark blue originally. So my rule for that is background. Hashtag that dark blue is 0E3E62. I don't need to worry about changing the color. I know the color is already white. So I'm going to now just write my hover state. I want my hover state to be the light blue. Okay, so my next rule is going to be, does anybody know what it's going to be? BTN dash info colon hover. So that's my pseudo selector for the hover state. So when this button is hovered over, I want to change the background color. I also want to change the color of the text so it's not white on a light blue. I'm going to make it the dark blue on the light blue. Okay? I'm going to say background pound sign 81D6FF. And in order to change the color of that text, I'm going to say color, remember foreground color or the color of text. It's a good way to think of it. Pound sign 0E3E62. So if you save that and you go back out to your browser and refresh your page, there you go. So now they go the other way. So there's you can do like you can implement some basic styling, but you're definitely going to want to kind of your sites are already designed, so you're going to want to dive into them and do some further styling. Do you guys have any questions about that? That was actually quite a long lesson.